So I was spending 6 hours on a Friday night minding a bathroom in a fancy restaurant in Sydney. I think the title of the job, Ladies Toilet Attendant. Very quickly realized that I need to earn some money if I want to stop counting my pennies.
Luciana Bassi shares her story of coming to Australia from Brazil, working her way up to building a $4 million portfolio.
I knew that investing would be the next step. I need to educate myself. I need to understand how it's done properly.
Also sharing some of what's built her into the property success she is today.
I call the MSA mindset strategy. Figure out your strategy and stick with it and take action. Population had to be becoming more affluent. Now, and numbers don't lie, as long as you don't manipulate them. 55 to 60% of the total price has to be attributed to.
As well as opening up a terrifying experience that completely changed her mindset.
If it had gone differently, maybe I wouldn't be here to tell this story. We got followed by a guy with a gun.
Luciana Bassi's story is one of a strong mindset, determination, combined with property investing skill. There's a lot to learn from this episode. If you're enjoying what we're making here at Pizza and Property, please make sure to hit the subscribe button before this episode starts. My name's Todd Sloan. This is the Pizza and Property Podcast. Let's get into my chat with Luciana Bassi. Luciana, how you going?
Very good. How are you, Todd?
Yeah, good. It's very good to have you on the show. So you've built a $4 million portfolio, and I've got an incredible story as to how that's come about, which I'm really looking forward to unpacking. But before we get into the story, I wanted to actually jump in with a few actionable takeaways. Can you share your top 3 lessons that you've really learned over the years for scaling a portfolio?
Sure. I call the MSA.
MSA.
Yes. Okay. Mindset. Mm-hmm. It's 50%, maybe more than 50%. Strategy. Mindset, figure out your strategy.
Yep.
And stick with it. Don't keep chopping, changing as the time goes by, and take action, the most important one.
In your experience, where do you see most people going wrong in those 3? Is there like a standout, or do you reckon everyone's a bit different? Or
I think people keep changing their strategy. You know, they just go with the flow, and if someone else is offering different types of properties, they might keep changing the type of asset, or the type of, they change their strategy, or they're not quite in the right mindset. They're not hanging with people that are like-minded or that are contributing to their self-development and growth.
And what was the biggest turning point for you figuring out that mindset? Like, is this just you as a person, or did you have a moment of like aha?
I would say it's a bit of both. It's me. I'm always looking to better myself, always investing in educating myself. But also, I had a few different moments in mind, and mainly looking at my parents and see how they work so hard and they study hard. They're both doctors, mm-hmm. but they still relying. Mom is retired now, but that still rely on his income.
And there's a point of your parents' story that is pivotal in your story as well, that we'll touch on a little bit later in the chat. But from what you said, they still live in Brazil, is that right?
Mum lives here,
yeah,
and Dad lives in Brazil.
Dad lives in Brazil.
Yeah. But yeah, it's amazing how much our parents influence on our story. We don't realize when we are young, we don't realize it until later in life.
And I don't know if you've had a similar experience, but for me, some of the influence was getting taught what not to do. It's funny, like, because I had, like, my dad was very much teaching me work ethic, 100%. And it's funny that he didn't even know he was doing it. When I've done a few things and he's like, geez, where do you get this from? It's like, you idiot. I've watched you work around the clock. And then mum had wonderful budgeting habits that she passed on to me. But then I don't ever actually talk about this, but I actually had a stepfather from pretty much 3 years old to 23. Have nothing to do with him anymore, which is a totally different story. But he taught me a lot of what not to do. A lot of bad habits, a lot of sitting down, not doing anything. And I think sometimes that negative influence, if it's used right, can be just as powerful, but it has to be used right. And I think the way that we frame things, there's a quote that I love. I say it all the time now. It's Anise Nin. She's a French poet. We see things not as they are. We see things as we are. I think this kind of fits perfectly into the segue about the beginning of your story, because you came to Australia, and I won't tell, I'll let you tell the story, but But I feel like you came to Australia in a way where so many people would have been like, well, this probably isn't the best. I might leave. Whereas you kind of saw things from a different perspective and really turned the lemons to lemonade. But do you mind kind of opening up a little bit more about coming here, your first job, and how it all began?
Yeah. Can I correct you?
Of
Todd?
course, yeah. What have I
It's
got
not
wrong?
lemonade, it's caipirinha. Remember?
Oh,
Turn
that's
the
right.
lemon, the lime into caipirinha.
And what's caipirinha again for anyone else that's like?
A beautiful Brazilian beverage, alcoholic
Okay.
beverage.
So if anyone's going on a holiday to Brazil,
yes,
remember to order caipirinha.
Caipirinhas, yes, for sure.
Got it. Okay.
All right.
So where did it all begin?
All right. In my mid-20s, I had finished uni, had landed a couple of good jobs, had a lovely boyfriend who is now my husband.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a good life, but I was so unsettled. I was looking for something that I didn't know what it was. And because of that, because I couldn't figure it out, I decided to take a sabbatical and come to Australia.
What did you study?
I did, it's a double degree. There's nothing like it here, but it's a mix between engineering and marine science.
Wow, that is two very different fields. But obviously they correlate to each other in a way that, isn't obvious at first.
Yes, they do. So basically the engineering will be dimensioning, fishing gear, boats, and also fish ponds.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, using the maths for this sort of stuff.
And so you got your double degree, you got a job, but something just didn't feel right.
Something was missing, Todd.
Okay.
And I think it was this beautiful country.
Okay. And so you came over to Australia in your mid-20s?
Mid-20s.
Mid-20s.
Sold everything I had, which wasn't a lot. It was my car and a couple of belongings, which was enough to pay for 5 months of English course. Living expenses back then was the government required that we show proof of $1,000 per month.
Okay.
To cover cost of living. Impossible to imagine it nowadays.
Are we talking like what, early noughties, mid noughties?
I'm not that old, Todd. Was 2004.
I didn't mean it that way.
2004.
2004. Okay.
Yeah, and I was a bit short of money for the flight ticket, but Mom is stepping and she helped me with that. So I ended up here, and the plan was always to go back.
What changed?
Life was good here. I started improving my English. When I arrived, I couldn't speak, could barely understand any English, could write and read, but I couldn't speak or understand. Life was better, and I had an argument with my boyfriend.
Okay.
And I told him, you know what, I'm going to extend my visa and stay here for a little bit longer. I'm not coming back for you.
What do you think of that?
He didn't like it, obviously, but it took him 3 days, and he got back to me. He gave me a call, and he said, you know what, if you're not coming back, I'm coming to Australia. I'm going to meet you there. A couple of weeks after, he sent a nice ring. It was an engagement ring, but it was a nice ring to say, hey, I'm committed. I'm coming. Let's see where Australia will take us.
Okay, so you're telling your boyfriend at the time you're staying. He's not having a bar of it. So he sends over a ring, not an engagement ring, but like a, hey, I'm in this, and starts talking about coming to Australia.
Yep.
Okay. What are you doing to stay in Australia at that stage?
Well, I didn't plan to work because I planned to really enjoy myself, learn the language, and I didn't want to work too hard and not be able to go to school and learn English because I was paying a fair bit of money for the course. But I landed my first job, and it was a bit of an unusual job. It is, I think the title of the job, the role is ladies' bathroom or toilet attendant.
A toilet attendant.
Yes. So I was basically spending 6 hours on a Friday night and 6 hours on a Saturday night minding a bathroom in a fancy restaurant in Sydney. My job was to keep it tight, to keep it clean, and to fold luxurious white towels and give to the ladies after they wash their hands. That was my job.
And you've got a double degree.
Yes.
But you're still happier working in a toilet in Sydney, in Australia. You really must have felt a bit lost.
I wasn't happy doing that, but I realized that the $1,000 per month wouldn't get me very far. I had dreams to dive in the Great Barrier Reef, to travel around the country. So I very quickly realized that I need to earn some money if I want to stop counting my pennies.
And why this? Like, why this? Because I'm sure there's a ton of other sort of like part-time jobs. This doesn't sound like it would be the funnest job in the world. Why did you choose it?
Not at all, Todd. It was the timing. It didn't stop me from attending classes because a lot of my friends, they were missing classes to be able to work.
Of course, we're your Friday, Saturday night.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Okay.
I took it. I couldn't speak any English either.
Mm-hmm.
So it's super sad. But I listening to conversations in the bathroom, which is what us ladies, we do, I improved my English a fair bit. And some of the regular customers, they got used to me and they talk a fair bit with me as well. So yeah, helps not only with my listening, but also with my speaking.
The thing that I think really stood out to me when you and I were having a chat is that it doesn't stop there. First of all, you're coming to Australia, you're working in a toilet Friday night, Saturday night, because it doesn't interfere with your studies. But you then turned up the volume on what could actually be done in those 12 hours over the weekend. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. I did. Indeed, Todd. A few times that I was feeling down and I wanted to quit the job, I would get paid tips.
And how much roughly?
I was getting paid for the 2 shifts, 12 hours. I was getting paid with allowances and everything. I was getting paid about $250 back in 2004, 2005.
Okay, so back then I suppose it's not too bad.
Not too bad because it was weekend, it was night shifts. I was from 8 to 2 a.m.
Okay.
Every time I said, that's it, I'm quitting tonight, I would get paid the same amount or more that I was getting paid for my hours.
Yep.
I was getting that amount or more in tips.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So I kept on going and I said, I can do it for a bit longer. But I not only thought that, I said I can do better. You know, if there are cashed up ladies here willing to pay me money, what can I do other than folding and giving them towels? What can I do to get more tips? Because we all like money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I started offering makeup and the tips probably doubled by then.
What do you mean offering makeup? So you do the girls' makeup?
No, I would leave the makeup. I can barely do my own makeup, Todd. My daughter did my makeup today.
Okay.
So what I did, I left the makeup near where the towels used to stay. So they would make after COVID, it's very hard to imagine you sharing a lipstick with someone.
Yep.
But back then was a thing and people used to wear my makeup.
And that doubled your tips?
Doubled my tips.
But it keeps going, doesn't it?
Yes, it does keep going. Within a year, I was quite known by the regulars and they would come and stay and talk to me. By then, I was already, I volunteered for 6 months in my field as a lab technician for a research institution in New South Wales. Mm-hmm. So I was doing double shift. And this regular in particular was a beautiful Asian lady. She knew that I was working really hard. I was working double shifts on Fridays. Mm-hmm. And she said, come here, you work so hard, you look tired, you deserve to be treated well. Come here. And she started giving me shoulders and neck massage.
She's massaging you?
She was massaging me.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, I got...
you really built up some relationships.
I did. Yeah. I did with the regulars. And I could see that every lady that had worked hard over the week as well, mm-hmm. they were coming into the bathroom after having a cocktail or a meal. They felt like, they looked like they wanted massage as well. So I said, there is another way I could make money. I spoke to my manager and she did not say much. About a month after, she came back with a beautiful card, Give Yourself Relaxing and Rejuvenating Massage by Luciana. And she gave me the card. So I would get to the bathroom, mm-hmm. set up, having the towels, having the makeup, and mm-hmm. have the card there. I would offer the massage only to the ladies who took the time to read the card and try to figure out what it was about.
So you weren't standing there like spruiking it. There was still, because obviously this is a classy establishment.
That's correct.
Right. And then, so your tips doubled when you started offering the makeup. What happened to your tips then when
More
you
than quadruple.
Okay.
More than quadruple. So I kept on working there
mm-hmm.
to the point that the establishment, they need to cut some funds. First thing they said, we don't need to spend any money on the lady toilet attendant anymore. So they said you're no longer required to keep the toilet, the bathrooms tight and clean, but everybody loves your massage. You can continue offering the makeup and the massage.
Well, at that point, you're making more money with that than what they're paying you anyway.
Yeah, way more. Even more than my job as a lab technician.
And how consistent is this? Is this just like one weekend it was amazing, the next weekend it was nothing, or like pretty consistently it was?
Pretty consistent. And I set myself a goal as well. I would leave the place once I reach a certain amount.
And what was that?
Was between $800 and $1,000.
So around the same time you were doing this, I used to work 12-hour days underground in the mines. I even spent my 21st birthday underground when we had an earthquake and we weren't allowed to leave, just to paint the picture of it was pretty hard work. I was earning $205 a day back then to do that. And you're getting up to $800 a day, did you say it was?
For 6 hours, 5 to 6 hours.
That is nuts. And this is the reason why I really wanted to press on this, because I feel like it would have been so easy to go, oh, Australia probably wasn't what it's cracked up to be. I'm working in a toilet. Let's just go back. And go back is something that you did do, which we'll touch on in a second. But not only did you go, hey, I can double my income by thinking outside the box and offering the makeup. And again, as much as you can't do that now, doesn't matter. It's the thinking outside the box bit that's important.
Yep.
Then quadrupled it by offering massages and still going down the right channels, making sure management was on board with it, everything was all above board. You're earning what most people earn in a week in pretty much a night in a 6-hour shift. Now, you're not investing yet at this stage though, are you?
I wasn't. I was saving.
You're saving.
And I knew that investing would be the next step.
Okay. Talk to me a little bit more about going back, because that's when everything changed, didn't it?
It did. Because up until then, I was always thinking of going back to Brazil. Love my country. I love the culture. I have a lot of things that I love about it. But about 1 year that had moved here, my return ticket was about to expire and I was feeling so homesick. I really want to go back and see my parents and my friends. And so I ended up going to Brazil. I invited a good friend of mine who was my English teacher. She became a good friend. And we went back to Brazil. Went to visit my mom, northeast of Brazil, a place called Recife. And mom wanted to show us around, wanted mainly to show her around, and took us to a nice holiday beach near where she used to live.
So would this be like a Gold Coast kind of equivalent?
Yeah. Probably more Sunshine Coast, a bit quieter.
Okay.
And then because we were jet lagged, we fell asleep at the wrong time of the day. And then we got up at 2 a.m. feeling hungry and wide awake.
I know the feeling.
Yes.
Yep.
So we went out, looked for food. The only thing we could find, surely enough, was pizza. We had a pretty average pizza, but because we were right awake, we decided to go for a walk at the beach, and that was a bad decision. It was quite naive, After living 1 year in Australia, I think I got a bit more relaxed, and maybe I don't know what I was thinking. Probably wasn't thinking. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done what I did.
Why? Why do you say that?
Yeah, it's dangerous in Brazil, even though it was a small town and everybody knew everybody. It was dangerous. We got followed by a guy with a gun, and we got robbed. Lucky he was new to the crime life, and I could see that he was nervous, he was shaking, and he didn't hurt us. But maybe if it had gone differently, maybe I wouldn't be here to tell the story, Todd.
When you say he's new, he was shaking, can you kind of take us back to that moment? Because I'm picturing, even if someone's shaking, I've never been held at gunpoint. I'm picturing that I'd probably be shaking. Like how does that even feel in that moment? I
shaked afterwards. At the time, I was the one who had to keep calm because my friend had never or hadn't been experienced that such a situation myself either. But I felt like I was an important piece there. Otherwise, my friend could, react so I had to keep calm. I was shaking internally, but I could see that I looked calmer than he was. And I'm very grateful that he let us go. And it was the fast 500 meters that I ran in my entire life.
Yeah, I bet. And so you're essentially running for your life.
Yep.
You're running back to the hotel, I presume.
Yep.
What's going through your mind at this stage? Like, how does this then translate to, are you instantly going, I'm done with this place? Because obviously you come back to Australia after, but is that one of the main catalysts?
Definitely. I remember there was also a sentence, a phrase that my friend mentioned, because we had to keep driving. We couldn't stop at red light at night past 10 o'clock. And I remember we have to have air conditioner in the car because we couldn't have the windows open for safety reasons. And I remember my friend saying, you guys live in a civil war and you don't realize it. Because it was part of life. It was norm. And she was right. I didn't realize it. So that experience and what she told me really stood with me. Mm-hmm. And I said, there's a reason why I wanted to go to Australia, and now I want to stay. I'll do everything I can to make my life in Australia, apply for visa and everything. So that's why saving hard, sticking with the ladies' bathroom attendant job was important, because it was how we would be able to manage to apply for the visa and pay for the visa, more importantly.
So you return back to Australia, and then you and your now husband, or you guys are married around that 2008 sort of mark?
2005.
2005.
Yeah.
And you start saving up for a property, correct?
We started saving up for the visa first.
Yep.
Yeah. We had a few steps that we had to
Because what's
follow.
a visa worth? They're not cheap, are they?
Back then, it's different now. It's much more expensive now. But back then, we spent about 15 grand on the visa.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Okay.
Hubby, he is a vet, and he had to go back and study to be able to validate his degree here. That's how we apply for the visa, through his skills.
And then 2009 is when you got into property, but not investing just yet. The first property was a PPR, correct?
That's correct. So we lived in Sydney, and part of the visa condition was to live in Adelaide, or a low growth population area, and Adelaide was one of them.
Yep.
So we moved from Sydney to Adelaide in 2007. In 2009, we got our permanent visa, permanent residency. And 2009, it's a very special year. It was a turning point for us. We got the visa. Soon after, we got the property, the first one. And then, and there was the pregnancy as well. I got pregnant with my first child.
So the Australian dream is starting to fully form.
Yes, it did. So the savings, when we first started saving, was to start our life here in Adelaide. But very quickly, both myself and my husband, we found jobs. So the saving went straight. All the money that we saved in Sydney, and he did work hard as well, wasn't only me. Yeah, all the money that we saved, we put towards was 10% off our first home. Would have been, in today's money, would have been probably $70,000 or $75,000.
And you're working as well at that stage, or your job's being mum? What is it at that point?
In 2009, I was still working.
Still working.
I took some maternity leave. I think it was about 6 months of maternity leave. 2009, I fell pregnant. She was born in 2010.
Okay. From there, then we're talking about property investing didn't come into the picture for a little while, did it? Because you bought your first investment property in 2017, but then you bought another house to live in, but then the first house became an investment property. Is that right?
That's correct.
So you kind of evolved into it instead of going like, bam, here's a turning point, let's become property investors.
That's exactly right, Todd. It happened organically as the family grew. We bought a bigger place and we managed to keep the existing one. It was only in 2017 that we bought an investment property. And knowing what I know now, that was one of the worst purchases we made.
Why is that?
Was a unit in a boutique apartment and in a new estate. So there was quite a lot of supply. One of the things that I look now that I figure out the strategy that works for me, is the demand and supply ratio. And at that time, I didn't know it, but there was so much supply. And the property doesn't improve in value, doesn't grow, and neither did the rent, because there was so much supply, so many people offering rent.
So you had a stagnant rental growth and a stagnant capital growth property.
Yes, I did.
What was it, like the classic off the plan apartment story or
Yes.
what? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Do you mind me asking, because I'm always fascinated to hear this, like my story is similar. Like it wasn't off the plan, but it was like 5 years old or something, it may as well have been. And I stupidly bought it to impress a girl that was coming over from Melbourne. If you've never listened to the show before, that's probably an odd introduction for me. but end up seeing the light, selling it 10 years later, blah, 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 then built a portfolio. But I'm always fascinated to hear what it is that really makes people go, no, this is the right choice. Was it like a really slick sales presentation? Was it friends at a barbecue? Like what made you guys go, let's do this?
Was the sales presentation, as well as the fact that we didn't need to put any deposit down and we didn't need to pay any mortgage repayments while it was being built. And there was 1 year guarantee of rental guarantee as well. So basically we didn't spend any money, but we didn't make any money either.
Right. So there was this kind of like, it almost felt de-risked.
Yeah, it did.
Gotcha. Before we start talking about the way that you scaled things up big time around that 2021, 22 mark, can you talk to me a little bit more about the next turning point before that actually, well, I guess what really got you into it?
Yes. My husband and I, we decided to take another sabbatical and we upgrade our car and our camper trailer and we decide to go traveling around Australia with the family. We are family people and we really want to spend the time with the kids and get to know this beautiful country. So we planned our trip and we left, and after I think we were 2 or 3 weeks within the trip, I heard that my dad got diagnosed with his second cancer. I wanted to drop everything and head back home and stay with Dad. And Dad was quite good and he said, what you're doing is amazing. Seize the moment, enjoy the time with your kids and husband. I'll be here once you finish your trip. So when you're traveling, you're not working, you're only catching up with people and visiting places. You have a lot of time to think. And just seeing what my dad was going through again for the second time within 1 year got me thinking, he has worked very hard for over 4 decades. He earns a decent salary and he was still suffering not only from the health problem, but also the drop of income. And that was a moment that I said, we've got to do better than this. We've got to be able to prepare ourselves to live the life in the terms that we want to live. We would like to be able to go traveling more often, to spend more time with our family in Brazil, particularly as our parents are getting older. Mm-hmm. So that's when I said property is the vehicle for us, property investing. So that's when I start getting itchy again to start investing, and this time investing properly, not just doing it organically.
Why is property the vehicle after you've bought an investment property and it's done no rental growth, no capital growth? Because to me, if I was in that situation, like I just have this strange passion for property. I think it comes from playing with Lego a lot as a kid. But if you don't have that kind of obsession, it sounds like you had a pretty bad experience. What made you go, nah, property is the vehicle?
Well, we had 2/3 of our properties were doing well, but the 1/3 did so well that made up for the rest of it. So I thought we just need to redo what we did right, or even better, I need to educate myself. I need to understand how it's done properly and pick my strategy and go for it, as opposed to just fall for a sales pitch and ended up buying a unit. So I knew that there was the way to do it. I just need to figure out what would work for us.
So you had enough proof in what worked correctly to go, okay, it's not property. Maybe we just made a poor choice on one of them.
That's correct.
Gotcha.
More than one of them, but that's okay.
Okay.
That's okay.
Talk to me about growth now, because I feel like that is such a big turning point. You're looking at your dad working hard for 4 decades. Like, I mean, he's a doctor. I don't see many doctors that are just casually floating about. That would be a very difficult job. To then see him get sick and be like, how are you still dependent on your wage? Like that would be a huge feeling for you to then see that vulnerability, I'd imagine, in your father. So that's then awoken something in you to be like, I don't ever want this for my kids, for my husband. So you and your husband are going into acquisition mode. Yes. And really going to buy, to build. You've had a bad experience. You've learnt from that. What are you doing different now?
All right. The first thing we did was going cold turkey and selling underperforming assets. By doing that, we free up our serviceability and our borrowing capacity.
So you're cutting the dead weight.
Yes.
And
Cold blood.
How are you assessing what's dead weight?
Well, I was looking at how the value of that asset had changed, not a lot, and how much it was costing us, because we didn't. It was still negative geared property. So we said it's not improving value and it's costing us money. So why? Why would we keep it? So it was a very easy decision. But by then, even during the trip, I started reading more books. I started listening to podcasts such as yours, Todd. And I said, I need to do better than I did first time. I need to educate myself. As soon as I chose my strategy, which was capital growth, it still is, that's when I said, okay, now it's time to take action. And that's how we basically double our portfolio. That took us 12 years to create. In 2 years. We doubled in 2 years.
So it took you 12 years to create 2 million.
That's correct.
Then it took you 2 years to create 4.
Yes.
Okay. Let's drill down on that growth there, because there's a few people scratching their heads going, how? So you focused on capital growth. You cut the underperforming assets. Are you rolling up your sleeves? Are you renovating? Are you developing? How are you getting the serviceability bump for this?
So we never renovated. My husband is quite handy, but he's a perfectionist. He takes forever, and I'm very impatient.
My brother's the same.
So we decide not to go down that road.
Okay.
We basically started looking. My background is science, right? So it made sense to look at data, to look at metrics that were indicative of strong assets early in the growth cycle. So that's basically what we did.
And how are you learning this? This is from books, podcasts, or did you end up doing a few courses?
I did a few courses as well. Yes.
Okay. What out of all of the books that you read, what was probably one of the biggest standout ones?
Yeah, it was The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason, I think it is.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Why that book? What was it?
It has to do with the mastermind, that concept that we should share the knowledge. And that's, in fact, how our property journey, investing journey started with a few mates talking and just bouncing ideas off each other, as opposed to keep your knowledge for yourself.
I like this. And this all comes back to one of your 3 lessons at the very beginning of the mindset. So that kind of sounds to me like the importance of having an abundance mindset.
That's correct. As opposed to be living afraid that people will steal your ideas.
Brilliant. Okay. So you're reading books, you're educating yourself, you're taking action, you're cutting the dead weight, you're going, this hasn't grown in value, it's not growing in rent. Why do I still have this? You're cutting it and you're going, all right, now let's start using an analytical approach. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but let's run with it. And you're using the data to go, where's going to grow? Because hubby's good on the tools, but he's probably too much of a perfectionist to do things in a pragmatic and profitable way. Yep. So where'd you start buying? Like, how did you start assessing this?
Well, we had our eyes in WA since 2021, 22.
So you were on the Perth bandwagon before anyone else was?
Yes.
I still remember listening to podcasts and reading articles going like, see, Perth hasn't grown. It's a dud. It's never going to grow. But you're looking at it from the opposite perspective.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and what gave that away from my point of view was some of the metrics.
So you're saying you used the metrics to really track it. So what are the 3 most important metrics for really tracking growth?
Do you want to know the most important metrics that I use, Todd?
Absolutely.
All right. So first of all, demand and supply ratio. I had been burned before, so I knew that buying in desirable areas where supply was limited and demand was huge was important.
Okay, so supply and demand ratio. What's next?
That's correct. I also looked for areas where it was affordable to buy, but also affordable to keep. So the rental yield had to be enough to cover. Back when I did it, the interest rates were low, a bit different story now, but the rental yield had to be higher than 5%, 5.5%. That's what the type of properties that I was looking for.
Okay, so strong supply-demand ratio, high-yielding properties, but not crazy high. We're not talking about like 7, 8, 9. We're still talking just like a solid 5% plus.
That's correct. We
Okay.
didn't need back then. Now we do.
Bit different, yeah. And what's the third one?
Population in the area had to be becoming more affluent. I also check the household income, if it was tracking upwards, if it was growing. And there's one more metric, if you allow me, Todd.
Yeah. What's a bonus?
Always look for established houses with land content. 55 to 60% of the total price has to be attributed to the land.
You're talking like someone that's been burnt by a unit before.
Yes.
I know the feeling.
Yes. If subdividable, better.
Yep.
But if not, if there's land content, as we know, land appreciate, dwelling depreciate.
Let's go through these a little bit. So supply demand. For anyone listening going, yeah, okay, that's good. I've heard of this before. How are they checking it? Where are you getting this kind of information from?
From subscriptions. In my case, I use
Like
software.
RB Data or?
Software called DSR, Demand and Supply Ratio.
DSR, okay.
Yep.
Awesome, DSR.
If you look at stock on market, days on market, usually gives you an idea on how the demand is tracking. Also look at what's around the area. We don't want to buy. We want to buy where the area is landlocked, where there is no much land supply around it, where there is no farmland, because that eventually can turn into
turning that supply-demand ratio against you.
That's correct.
Yep. Okay. And so when you're searching and you're wanting a higher yielding property, where are you getting that info from?
Also get from the same subscription. It gives an average yield for the area. But obviously, before putting an offer on a property, I would do my due diligence and work out for that specific property how much, what's the rental yield using calculator, using Excel.
Okay, but as far as like bigger picture of what areas to even look at to begin with, you're using DSR for that as well.
DSR, that's right.
I feel like I have to say this is not a paid sponsorship by DSR. This just keeps coming up. That sounds useful. But okay, and household income. So you're talking about an area's transitioning to more affluence. So essentially going through like almost a gentrification, if you will. Are you going ABS for this? Yep. Okay.
That's correct.
And what kind of a line are you looking for as far as that transition? Just any kind of positive growth, or is there like a certain amount you're looking for?
Positive growth.
Like in income?
In income?
Yeah.
Usually I use rates. So what's the rate of the growth of the income? So basically compare the area with the city or the state, because we want to buy where the household income is growing faster than anywhere else.
Because that way it's got reason to actually continue to push the price up. Because if people can't afford it, they're not pushing the price up.
That's correct.
Got it. I like this. This is analytical but logical all at the same time.
It's a mix between quantitative and qualitative analysis.
And for anyone that doesn't understand the difference, would you be able to open that up as like a high level?
Yeah, the quantitative are the numbers, and numbers don't lie as long as you don't manipulate them. And the qualitative is understanding what's going on in the area, why it's a desirable area to live in. Is it near a sought after school, or it's near a new infrastructure project, or it's near a new business center, and so on.
And is there anything that you do to not get led astray by data that is, like I always remember there was this funny graph I got showed years ago, and it was the uptake in pirated videotapes. And for anyone that's like 21 years old and going, what's a pirated videotape? That was when you used to get from the video store and you'd have 2 VCRs and you'd make a dub of the movie. But it was how it correlated to global warming. And it was like, look, proof. You're like, pirating videotapes is causing global warming. Obviously, that's ridiculous. But it's the whole correlation causation argument. Is there anything that you do to filter out the noise of things that appear correlated at first and useful, but then when you look a bit closer, you're like, no, wait a second, that's a false read?
Critical thinking is one of them, but also triangulate the data. Basically using your critical thinking to select what's actually a trend and what's noise.
I like that. Okay, so you're basically going, this might look a little bit odd. Let's back it up and try and find it somewhere else. Then if it's both parties are going, yes, it's pointing towards this, but it's still looking a bit odd, basically apply critical thinking, which to me is very much like Be logical about this and look at how is this working.
Common sense.
Yeah, are pirated videotapes really causing global warming? Probably not. Okay, and so by this stage, you've added a few properties to the portfolio. You've then scaled up really quick. How long was it until you started to see equity returns from this?
With the help of COVID, 3 months.
3 months.
Yeah. There was a property even before we settled. The rent and the price have gone up already.
Okay, and so you're now sitting on a fair bit of equity by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
You've built the portfolio back up after culling it down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're sitting at 4 mil now. I've been reading a lot of quotes lately. I got this book ages ago, and it was all about like greatest minds and a whole bunch of little quotable quotes, if English is good enough. But there's one that really stands to mind that I've actually got in front of me right now, and I feel like it just fits your story so well. In any moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing. And the worst thing you can do is nothing. It was Teddy Roosevelt. I love that because to me it really speaks to the cost of inaction. And it would have been so easy for you to have gone through a bad experience. Your life story has so many ups and downs. So many of them could have been used as reasons to stop. And people would have gone, yeah, no, totally understand. It would have been an understanding point. It wouldn't have been a what are you doing point. But you didn't stop. You kept going. You kept pushing forward. You then got into property investing, made a bit of a mistake with it. Again, could have easily stopped, but you didn't. You kept going. You kept pushing forward. And I just feel like this is such a running theme for you, like rewinding all the way back to the beginning of it. You're working in a toilet. It's like, that is not the most glamorous job. 99% of people listening would probably even say, I wouldn't do that job. Not only did you take it, you turned it into earning more money than I was earning in the mines at the same time, which is incredible. You then scaled a portfolio during a time of 2021 in a part of the country that most people were saying was dead and was the dud, that anyone that was investing in was silly. You rebuilt to a $4 million portfolio. Action is very much the theme for you. And coming back to your first 3 lessons, action was number 3, taking action. Is there anything else that you really want to round out the action point with for anyone that's listening that's really been inspired by your story?
I just want to say, Todd, it is overwhelming. Purchasing a property, either PPOR or an investment property, it is overwhelming doing it for the first time. But the more you do it, the better you become, the easier it gets. And if you make a few mistakes along the way, it's okay. It's going to be fine. You know, who hasn't had any mistakes in this property investment world? So yeah, just do it. And if you can't, if you're feeling overwhelmed, there is always people who can help, brokers, accountant, conveyancer, and even buyer's agent, even BAs.
I think I'm yet to interview anyone that just had this straight upwards trajectory. Like most of the most successful people that I actually interviewed. And there was this other quote, I don't have it in front of me, so I'm going to butcher this, but it's something along the lines of the most successful people in the world are only as successful in the exact opposite to they've been unsuccessful, as if to say it in my own words, basically, you're only ever going to be as good as your greatest failure. And I feel like that's one of the things that you do very well. The bad times were bad, but you turn them into good, and you turn them into really, really good. And to be able to sit here now with a $4 million portfolio, I'm curious to see what the next 10 years holds for you. What's the where to from here?
Well, I have to say that serviceability is a bit tricky at the moment. Mm-hmm. So 2 of our investment properties have large sheds. So we are looking into the co-living alternative strategy. So we plan on lining the sheds and rent it out to help with serviceability.
Brilliant.
Most of our properties we bought had land content, and they are subdividable. So development, subdivision, and hopefully building as well is on the cards as well. I'm just doing some education on that space. And we just want to keep buying and growing our portfolio further and help others around us as well.
So it's constantly reassessing.
It is.
I like that.
Yes.
Because it'd be very easy just to sit there with what you've got, but you don't seem to be one that's content with the status quo.
I'm grateful, but not content.
Well, Luciana, we've arguably arrived at the most important question of the entire show. I need to know, what is your favorite pizza?
Todd, being a Brazilian, am I allowed to have half and half?
Of course. Yeah.
Being a Brazosi, I should say, Brazilian Aussie. Taste of childhood,
Yeah.
Portuguesa is a Portuguesa, which
What's
is a
on that?
Portuguese pizza. It's very simple, but the combination of flavors is just superb.
What's on it?
Ham, cheese, tomatoes, olives, and a thick layer of finely sliced onions.
And they have to be finely sliced. Like,
Finely sliced, yeah. Oh, there are eggs as well.
and eggs.
Yeah, boiled sliced eggs.
Okay.
Yeah, very good.
How do you say it again?
Portuguesa,
Portuguesa.
which means Portuguese.
Portuguese. Yeah. Okay. Portuguesa. And
Yeah.
what's the other half?
An Aussie one down from my backyard in
Yeah.
Willunga. Blue cheese and walnuts with caramelized onions.
You're getting fancy. I like it. And you said down from your backyard. Well, you got a pizza oven at home.
Not yet. Husband,
No?
would you like to? It's when I say it's my backyard, my area. I'm from South.
And so are you getting it anywhere special down in Willunga?
The Russell pizzas.
For anyone that's not from Adelaide, Russell's Pizza House, I actually haven't been in years, but you used to wait 3 months for a reservation just to sit on his front lawn to eat pizza there. I don't know if it's still as like trendy and exclusive, but it was an experience eating at Russell's.
Yep, it still is.
I have to go again. Luciana, thank you so much for jumping on the show. I think that you've got a story that's going to touch a lot of people, that there's going to be a lot of people, young, old, men, women, that have been through a lot themselves, that can look at someone like yourself that has not only turned their lemons to lemonade, but they've turned their lemons into
Caipirinhas.
Luciana Bassi. Are there any final words of wisdom or anything you'd like to leave with our audience today?
Sure, Todd. I would like to say a sentence in Latin, and then I'm going to translate into English.
Okay.
Let's see my pronunciation.
I'm interested.
Audentes fortuna lavut, which means fortune favors the brave or the bold. So really, to get somewhere in life, you really need to be brave and bold and take action. Prepare yourself and take action.
That is a better closing remark than I had planned. I think we'll leave it there. Luciana, thank you so much for jumping on the show.
Thank you, Todd. My pleasure.